Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the live coverage of the 2025 U-18 Curling Championships. We're at the end of day 3. What should be day 4. There's been a lot of travel issues, but as of today, we've got all 42 teams are here, and we're moving towards the championships on Friday and Saturday. Still some round-robin play left to be sorted out. My name's Sean Joyce. I'm joined for this broadcast by Matthew Hall, and we're going to have women's action from Pool A, and it's one of the BC teams, BC2 against Nova Scotia 1. And really, Matt, we looked at the standings coming into this. The Nova Scotia team comes in with a record of 3-0. The BC team at 1-2 right now, but there's two teams sitting at 3-1 in this pool, and both of these teams both have to play the 2-3-1 teams. There's 4 teams here that are really chasing those 3 playoff spots.
Absolutely. Even if your record isn't exactly what you want it to be, if you're the Nova Scotia side at this moment, the BC side at this moment, your fate is still in your hands. You win this game, then you get to play those 2 other teams that are 3-1. You get wins there. You finish off with 3 straight. I think you're moving on to the playoff round after that. But it all starts here. Both these teams have had the opportunity to be on this ice a couple times over the last week. I think they're going to be comfortable with the ice surface, and we're going to have a good game here.
Well, and that's the other thing. In this particular pool, all of the teams have played at least 3 games. There are some pools where some teams just started play today. So whether it's good or bad, you can do a little bit of scoreboard watching in this pool because everybody's equal number of games pretty much.
Absolutely, and that's got to be a weird feeling. I can imagine, you've played your 4 games. Maybe you have a great record, you're 3-1, something like that. But those teams that are coming in a little bit later due to travel issues, they're playing games. They start climbing up in the standings, sort of catching up to you pretty quickly. It can make for a nervous situation, I think.
Yeah, it does. It's a little unusual. First stone here brought into the rings. We've seen this a number of times this week. Play brought into the rings in the first end, and the 2 teams seem content to exchange hits. Now, I will say I had the opportunity to do a game earlier this week with the Blades team, and they are 3-0 right now. They did this for the first 4 ends, and then it was a completely different game from the you could draw a line. It was a completely different game from the 5th. I did not ask the coach because if it is part of their strategy, it might be something they want to keep to themselves, but you just have to wonder, especially at this age group. It could be something that a lot of the teams are doing. Try to keep the game close for the first 4. Then we get to have a meeting and discuss, well, what's working for us, what are we doing, what's the other team doing, and you attack the second half of the game.
Well, yeah, I remember, especially when I was at this age and juniors coming up, we had confidence in our abilities, but especially when you get to a national championship like this and there's so much all on the line, you don't want to press the envelope until you're sure that everybody's comfortable with the ice surface, make sure that they know what draw weight is and are ready to take on those risks and go for it. You'd hate to come into a game and be like, okay, we're going to go right after them, we're going to toss up that center guard. All of a sudden you're not feeling very comfortable with the ice. You give up a big score early and you can pull yourself out of a game very, very quickly. So no surprise that we've been seeing a lot of teams play a little bit conservative, especially early on the games. I would expect that we'll see that shift as we move closer towards the playoffs, just more time on the ice, getting more comfortable with the ice surface. But certainly no surprise. And you get to bank a little bit of time, too, that you can always use later.
Well, that's something we should talk about as well. The rule's a little different here at the U-18 as far as the time management. Whereas, there's that other event going on right now in Thunder Bay, the Scotties, the older ladies. They play with 1 timeout in the game, 38 minutes in a 10-end game. A little different here. 8-end game. Normally an 8-end game would be 30 minutes. But what they've done here at the U-18s, and I love it. It's a great innovation. Instead of timeouts, they have coaches' interactions. They have a limit of 1 per end, but the coaches are out there at the end of the sheet. They can interact with their team once per end. The clock doesn't stop. It continues to run. So they've got 34 minutes on the clock to start the game. And, I haven't seen anybody get tight for time yet either.
No. I've been watching a few of the games. Seen a couple get down to like a minute, 2 minutes kind of thing by the end, but nothing that's really like a big time crunch. And I do think it's a great addition. Something I never got the chance to experience growing up. I was just a little bit older than that. I had aged out by the time they brought it in. But I think it's a great innovation. Allows the coach to be more involved in the game, especially at this younger age group where, you know, you give a coach 2 timeouts. In a lot of U-18 games, I'm sure there's plenty of times that you'd love to call a timeout, but you have to sit back and wait and use them more efficiently. This just gives them more chance to have an influence on the game and gives the players more chance to learn from their coaches and become better players themselves moving forward.
Still just the single rock in play, and the team's exchanging hits. Anna McNutt is the second for the Nova Scotia team. The out turn. Brush down is the lead, Lily Mitchell. Stephanie Atherton the third, and Cassidy Blades the skip. The coach, Kevin Ouellette. They play out of the Halifax Curling Club. On to third stones now. Sorry, Matt.
Oh, no worries. I was just about to say I mean, just on the sort of theme of kind of what's different with this event. I also love that, you know, they have multiple teams from different provinces. So all the provincial champions are here. They're denoted with the yellow hearts on their jerseys. But for teams like BC here, BC2 would have been the runners-up out in British Columbia. But a lot of the provinces get more than one entry into the event. I believe it's based on previous standings and whether or not they have the teams that they can send. But another great opportunity to get more kids exposed to the level of playing at a national championship. I think back in the day when I was first coming up in juniors, you look at somewhere like Manitoba, where you got Dunstone and Calvert were both there at that time. Between the two of them, they won 4 Canadian juniors in a row, but the unfortunate part was they just had to play against each other in the provincial final every year, so they were always butting heads. But getting those teams where there's a very good team in a province that maybe doesn't win, but they still get the experience of playing at a national championship, improving their skills, and you never know, maybe comes out as winners here. We've seen a couple times in the last year where that second team out of a province actually goes on to win the whole thing. So it's definitely exciting to watch.
Right after I mentioned that the teams were continuing to exchange hits, we had one little slight miscue, and they always blame the announcer when that happens. But so now facing 2, looking to make the hit, roll over and try to group these stones. This might roll a little too far. It will out the back.
I don't know what you've seen, Sean, but out of the few games that I've watched, the miss has been on the over curl, especially on the hits. And a lot of the times, I think the teams are pretty happy with what they see out of the thrower's hand, but just not quite anticipating the amount of jump, the amount of curl, and how sort of quick it comes on. Especially on championship ice surface like this, you always have to anticipate the curl, kind of try to get your sweepers on before you even expect it to happen, because if you wait till the break point, you're not going to have a chance.
No, you can't really hold it after it started to curl. That's a valid point, Matt. I talked to a couple of the coaches and asked them how often that they get to play on 5 feet of ice, and I haven't yet found a coach that said they ever get to play on it. It's not something you see in a lot of club curling. The opportunity's there more and more as clubs are learning to condition rocks. I know here in Saskatchewan we've got a number of clubs that have learned to condition rocks, and to the point where Curlsask is hosting an online seminar with, I believe it's Canada Curling Stone, or maybe Curling Canada that's putting it on with them, but it's all about conditioning the stones. They're going to do an online seminar with some of the ice makers across the province. It's become a big thing, and you can actually prolong the life of your rocks by treating them properly.
Well, and the more you can play on ice surfaces like this, you just get more used to it. You understand how you have to throw a stone in order to make shots. You know, when I was younger, you used to always hear about arena ice. And I mean, we're in a curling club here, but this is about as close as you're going to get to that kind of simulated environment inside of a curling club. But just the more experience you get to do it, you get to throw on ice like that, the better. And I found a lot of clubs have figured out how to best simulate that kind of environment. Me and my team, we practice here at the Nutana all the time, and it's never quite this much. They've really sort of treated the ice up really good for these players, but Lawrence and the ice making crew here does a great job of getting us curl to practice on every week, and it's a huge benefit when you then move on to that next step. You're used to throwing on ice like that all the time. Just makes it easier to be comfortable.
With that hit, Nova Scotia sits 2. BC going to be forced to try to take their single here, and looks like she's going to play the hit and roll in. Nose hit won't do it. Probably a little scary to draw against 2 in the first end as well.
Well, I didn't see who threw the draw for Hammer. I would have imagined that the skip would have been one of the 2 draws. So she would have thrown a draw in the very similar spot here about 10 minutes ago. But I mean, first end drawing against 2 is never something that you're too happy about doing. So play this hit, little flop in, steal of 1's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out.
Rush on early, but they backed away now. This has got to mean she's close. Needs to get a little bit to the inside to get a bit of a roll, and just not going to finish for her. She'll actually roll to the outside. It'll be a steal of 1. Nova Scotia taking the... Oh, pardon me.
I think they had the scoreboard.
We had the hammer up on the wrong side.
There, yeah. So it looks like it's going to be an open draw for 2 here, Sean.
For 2, yeah, it's a different...
So we're all set. We're all straight now here, Sean. Draw for 2 here for Cassidy Blades out of Nova Scotia. Great way to start this game.
Trying to keep her perfect record. Came into this with a record of 3-0. They are going to have to go to get this one to the rings. And it's not going to be there. Comes up well short. Well, it took us a few seconds longer to get there, but it was a score 1 for Nova Scotia here in the first end, the opening end to play. Women's round robin action from the 2025 U-18 Curling Championships.
Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, has led to this. It's out of your hands now. All the gold medals in the world can't help you now. You can throw the perfect rock and still miss, but it just takes one. You leave it all out there on the ice to leave behind a legacy.
The Canadian Curling Trials. The thing we cried for, fought for, thrown 1,000 rocks for. The podium, just out of reach. But we can almost taste the gold medals in our teeth. Defiant, we take down giants with nothing but the stones in our hands. And in the stands, they wait and see who among us will earn the right to wear the maple leaf.
Well, going into the break, we saw a quick shot of the crowd, one of those yellow fisherman's hats out in the crowd, and looking around, there's quite a few of them out there, and then I look across the sheets, there's 3 Nova Scotia teams out there tonight. It's all fisherman caps out there.
Yeah, it's been great to have the crowd here. I'm going to be honest, Sean, when I heard there were 42 teams coming here, especially U-18s where you know all the parents are coming, probably some family too. We have a big club here, but I was a little bit worried about exactly how much space there would be, but they've done a fantastic job. They set up bleachers over on what is normally sheet 1, so they've covered that and put it right beside our feature sheet here. A little bit surprised at the end of that last end. Cassidy coming up well short on that draw for 2. That is on the side of the crowd, and sometimes we do have a decent sized crowd here tonight, so could be maybe some extra warmth coming over in. Not really something you'd expect to show up in the first end, but I was just a bit surprised at how far off they were on that draw, especially considering that that's the same path as their draw for Hammer that they would have thrown before the game. So maybe something to keep an eye on there. Maybe she just pulled the string a little bit too much, but we'll have to log that for the future.
It's hard to know. We've had a few chances to see that. Of course, this has been the feature sheet all week long, so had a few chances to see it, and we haven't really noticed any speed difference between the two sides, unless where we did see it a little bit in the game this afternoon that I was doing with Daryl McKee. We had a couple of ends where it's just the way it evolved between the two teams. They played pretty much the entire end down one side of the sheet and forced an opposition to draw the other side with the last one, and of course that side that's been sitting for 15 minutes is just that little bit heavier. Play into the rings here again in the second end.
Well, you got to imagine that neither team is necessarily entirely comfortable with how that last end played out. Tried to play for the blank, and BC ended up with a flash that basically handed a 2 back to Nova Scotia. So you're maybe not necessarily entirely comfortable with the ice surface if you're BC. If you're Nova Scotia, though, you had the open chance for 2. You came up short of the hog line on that draw, so you're probably a little hesitant to really push the envelope until your skip gets their draw weight underneath them. So not entirely surprised, but as opposed to some of the other national championships that are played, this is only 8 ends here, Sean, and you learn really quickly growing up that 8 ends is not a lot of time. You can't afford to waste too much.
Just catches a piece of that stone, but it will be enough to remove it from play, so nothing left in play right now. Cassidy Blades calling for one to the top of the 4-foot here. Brusher's really just cleaning this. They must like the weight. It does illustrate just how much curl there is on that side. You saw where the broom was. It ends up back at the center line, and if that's right on the tee line, it's absolutely splitting center.
Yeah, my team got the chance to practice on this ice actually the couple days before the event started. Just get our own practice in, but also just sort of testing out the ice surface, letting the ice crew know what we were seeing. And that was the big thing that we took, was how much curl there was. Even when we were practicing, you were throwing at the edge of the 12 with a good half rock set. They were still getting back to center. It really felt like you almost couldn't miss a draw wide. Just send it out there and let your sweepers carve it back for you. It's exactly what you want to see out of a championship surface. And the teams, it's going to reward the teams that are the most consistent in their deliveries and are closest on the weight.
Well, Gwyneth Jones made the adjustment on her second shot. Now Stephanie Atherton trying to replace it one more time, and this is going to just catch a piece of it. Enough to remove it from play. And now BC the opportunity with nothing in play, and they're going to call for this stone into the rings as well. I wondered if she might think about a corner guard here, and she didn't think about it enough for me to even say it before she had the broom down.
It seems like they're pretty comfortable with the blank. They played the whole end that way, so why switch it up now? I agree. At some point, we're gonna see them take on that free opportunity, but they seem content to play things out here.
Well, and maybe this is part of the reason why they still need to get a little bit more comfortable. I'm the same as you. I didn't see who threw the draw to the buttons before the game. I did see they covered the button once, but I couldn't say for sure who threw it. And that one slides through the back. Another opportunity for the Nova Scotia team to play the draw. And interesting that already here in the second end, they've had a couple of chances to play free draws, and she's mapped out both sides.
Well, that's, you know,
You expect it at a higher level, but at these younger ones, you know, that shows that they're thinking beyond their age. The strategy is a little more advanced than you might think that it would be.
Absolutely, and I think I always try to, just like putting my coaching hat on here for a second, but whenever I'm working, especially with young teams like this, and we're looking at a situation like this, and it can be really easy just to shut the brain off, play the end out, you know you're heading for a blank, and really not think about it too much. But sometimes those hits where you actually roll out, it can feel like, yeah, whatever, I rolled out, there's nothing in play, they're just going to throw it in, we're going to keep hitting. So it doesn't change the outcome at the end, but when you give those free opportunities to your opponent to play a draw to the button, which now Nova Scotia has had a couple tries to do that. Actually, both teams have had a few free opportunities to play a draw. Gets your opponents that little bit more comfortable. They get to learn a spot that maybe they wouldn't have if you had stuck around. So those small innocuous misses, especially in really open ends here where you don't think about it too much, those can sort of come back to bite you a little bit later on in the game. If you now have to force the other team to play a draw, they're going to be that little bit more comfortable with it.
There have been a few opportunities in this game as well for open draws to the corner, and of course, and that's not true just at this level, even at the level you're about to play at in a few weeks prior in the Scotties, where so much of that pregame practice is geared towards the draw to the button. You don't get the chance in that practice session to learn the path and the speed, which is sometimes different to the corner as well. And of course, if you happen to win last rock, that's where you want to play, is out in the corner, and you don't really know it yet. So getting these free opportunities, and both teams have had a couple of chances to draw to the corner. Not all the free ones have come to the middle so far.
Yeah, and I mean, BC, just as you're saying, earlier in the end, they had that draw to the wings. They threw it through. So maybe that spot is a little bit quicker than they've realized it to be. Wouldn't you have loved it if they got caught on that a little bit later in the game when they're trying to set up a deuce, rather than now they know that spot? Hopefully they talk about it, they've logged it in the back of their mind so they don't make that mistake again.
This is going to need to come up. Sweeping a little bit for Curl, but she's going to go right by it.
And the other thing that we noticed practicing on these sheets is that the hits run, I wouldn't say abnormally straight, but a lot straighter than you think they would. So if you are just missing your hit weights up, even, you know, a half second to a full second, normally you might get away with that sort of thing. Not out here. They just track very straight, and there I think maybe just a little bit extra weight than she was looking for. Got a little bit wide of the broom, and it just doesn't even have a chance to come back.
Well, another opportunity for Cassie Blade. She was light on the draw for two in the first. Other side of the sheet, but it's still the in-turn and a chance to come around that stone at the top 12-foot. She could set up another, or a steal here. It's going to look like a lot of room at the hog line, but this will move big coming into the house if she's got the right weight. Comes to the back corner of the button, but it is probably looks like half buried.
Yeah, I'm sitting pretty much right behind it. Does look like it's about half open. So definitely leaves the opportunity here for Megan Rempel to come down and score her one. Would have loved that to be maybe a rock or two higher, but mission accomplished overall. Puts a little bit of extra pressure now throwing against 2.
Does. She's got to get to the nose to be shot rock or tap it. And then as soon as you throw the weight to tap, you run the risk of rolling too far. You saw how much Cassidy came by the guard by that stone in the top 12 foot. Really not in play, but it's going to be in the thrower's eye.
This comes down to throwing the right weight.
Definitely tighter line out of her hand, but this looks like more weight.
This looks really close.
Comes down, makes the tap, and stays right there. We're all tied up after 2 ends of play. BC, Nova Scotia tied at 1. Round robin action on the women's side. We'll have third end action for you after this.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
All tied up as we begin play here in the third end. Sean Joyce, Matthew Hall with you live from the Nutana Curling Club in Saskatoon. Cassidy Blades and her Nova Scotia team trying to keep their perfect record intact and electing here in the third end to ignore that first stone at the top of the 8 foot. We're going to see a corner guard.
First one of the game that we'll see, so hopefully that's a sign of things to come. You said earlier when you covered this team that they played things out pretty clean for the first half of the game and then sort of went for it. So they might have had a meeting in between ends, which is another great part about having the coaches out there on the ice. They get to be a part of those between end meetings. This one just slipping into the ring, so fortunately that'll leave BC the chance to hit it. But it's nice that they get to have that opportunity to actually chat with their coach in between ends. Sort of like what you'd see at a national championship where you're playing in an arena, you'd get to do the same thing, but not necessarily in a club. So they've done a great job of really making sure that everything here really has that national championship feel.
Ella Walker, the lead for the BC team, with the hit here, and she will roll the shooter across. Oh, that's a pretty good roll. Got the nice little spin at the end, frozen right on her own stone. Good enough, she gets a replay. You don't get replays on lead rocks very often.
Not often. Well done. And a chance here to really control your weight. You want to hit this right on the nose and stay frozen on that red stone. I'd hate to spring it too much. This one's curling early, though.
These are always harder than they look. You know, when you're trying to hit a rock just so dead perfect on the nose that you don't roll at all.
Mm-hmm.
Had the opportunity to introduce the Nova Scotia team earlier in the game. I haven't done the full squad yet for BC, so we should do that now. Ella Walker, we just saw her throw. She's the lead. This is the second, Gwyneth Jones. Parker Rempel is the third. Sweeping on the right as we see them coming down. And Megan Rempel, the skip in the house, and the coach, Wendy Cheka. we haven't actually seen from either of the coaches yet, but I'm sure we will see the interactions before the game.
Well, I don't think there was much to discuss in
Hasn't
those
been
first
so
couple
far,
ends.
no.
Nice and smooth. You got it.
And here again, we see it's been the same story all three ends. There's been an open miss somewhere along the line that has really dictated the flow after that. It's pretty straightforward after one open miss.
Roll. Yep. Good. 10-4.
It's a nice hit there with that little roll to the outside. BC's got a lot of work to do if they're going to get those yellow rocks close enough together to perhaps get a chance at a double later on.
Yeah, the trick with these kinds of situations is just a little bit of patience. If you make like one hit and roll and the other team noses it, then you might have a double, but it could be tough. So it's really about choosing when you want to go for it to try and remove as many rocks as possible. This one's tracking.
Gonna have a piece. Don't know that she's gonna be able to hold the shooter. And it will roll all the way through the back and out of play.
You got it, Anna.
So Nova Scotia will look to split the house, just drawing to the tee line now.
Line's good. All you. Line's good. Line's good.
Brusher's just cleaning.
Lily. Yep. Top 4. Yep. Yep. Okay, you're good. Cool. Good. 15-9.
That's pretty even.
Yeah.
So as you said, I think they can't really get them grouped all at one shot. So you got to roll over a little bit at a time. You'd love to get to the center line with this side. And then, now that's the one thing where it's hard to say for sure at this age group. If you get this first one to the center line, you might go actually over and address the other one and try to bring it closer. But that's an awfully wide hit. You may not see the teams at this age group want to play a stone out that wide. Just got a nice looking rock here.
10-4.
And that's a good start. I was really impressed by the Nova Scotia team on their weight judgment of that last stone. With that one rock being way over on the side of the 12, you have a lot of wiggle room to play with where you're going to be safe splitting the rings. But no, they wanted it exactly in one spot, and that's exactly where they put it. That's the kind of thing that you see out of a team that's going to move on to the playoffs and even further than that.
Okay, just know.
Would have maybe liked to roll a little bit to the open side. It's right on the nose. And this is the situation I was just talking about. If you're trying to group those stones, this is where you might actually go hit the wide one. But it can come down to what you're comfortable with, especially at this age level. And those wide hits, they just don't throw them very often.
Yeah.
There's no comfort there.
And it's always just a bit of a question too, right? Like, you don't ever throw out that wide on the sheet, so you know it's going to be a little bit fresh. So you got to throw a little bit more. How much is it going to curl? This one might stick around. See if it stays for shot.
That is a sneaky way to do it. You've actually forced the other team to throw out that wide.
I guess that's the other way to play it. If you're not going to group them yourself, force your opponent into making something tough.
Well, you get a hit and roll out of them, and you still get a chance to get out of this end. Now, admittedly, you're still going to have to go after that wide rock at some point.
Yep. Clean. Yep. Hard. Hard, Lily, hard. Hard, Lily.
Stephanie Atherton looking for the hit. She'd like to stay in the rings. This is really curling. I don't know if she's going to get a piece.
11-4.
Maybe a little quiet. They had very tight ice.
Well, you heard them say 11-4, and I think I didn't exactly hear what they were looking for, but that seems a fair bit lighter than you'd want to throw when you're throwing out wide in that new spot. You're thinking probably something closer to at least a 10, maybe even 9, depending on how sure you are in that spot.
Well, she certainly had tight ice. Now, this I find interesting. We've had both teams now in the last two shots having to play hits out wide. They played outside in for the Nova Scotia team, and here the BC skip has put the broom down to go inside out, where she will need a little more ice because you expect this is going to curl.
Sweeper's thinking this is a little light out of her hand.
She's got a piece now with this quieter weight. She's going to be in good shape here.
Just enough to push it through.
Yeah, if that doesn't push it on an angle at the side, if that's straight back, I don't know if it goes through.
Get forced anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Okay. 10-5? Yeah, you got it.
Cassidy Blades going to hit that stone, and again, playing the outside in turn with, again, as you can see, very tight ice. Broom inside the edge of the rock already.
Bit surprised to see that. I heard them say 10-5. I don't think the ice is running that straight. Maybe she's expecting a little bit of a set with her release, but we've definitely seen a couple over curls here. So sweepers, if I was the inside sweeper, I'd be getting ready to work hard on this one.
She did move the broom about an inch when she got to the hacks, but yeah, I agree with 10-5. You might be looking for a little more ice here. This is starting to curl. Really going to have to go to hold the shooter. She's got a piece of the red one now. Where is the shooter going to end up? Well, good job by the brushers to hold that. It rolls to the back 8 foot. It is shot rock. So Megan Rempel will have to make a play on it. If she can stay anywhere in the rings, she's got at least a force out of this.
Yeah, a great opportunity here to get your force here, try to go for 2 next end, try to flip the script, if you will.
Objective 1 here, always just to hit and make sure you stay in the rings. But if once you know you've got that hit and you're staying somewhere, you might like to roll just a little bit. We saw in the first end, the BC team didn't really want to play a draw against 2. You could put the same thought into the Nova Scotia team's head here.
Well, you need to make sure you stick around.
But she didn't, and that's what I mean. That's a good spot. Like, she's not really going to hit either one of those, so she's going to have to draw against the 2, and this is the same draw she threw in the first end that was not even close.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll see a little bit of adjustment. I'm sure she'll be closer than the first end, but when you miss by that much, you kind of always have that question mark in the back of your mind. And how much has the spot changed? You want to really talk to your sweepers. You know, maybe you want to give it that extra 12 feet, but if the spot is picked up and gain an extra 4 to 6 feet, you're cutting it a little close there. So.
Final stone, third end, tie game. Cassidy Blades facing 2, just needs full 12 foot.
Gotta be full 12. Oh, you. Mine's good.
Just the one brush down and really just cleaning. The weight looks pretty good.
Mine's good. 15. Careful. That did not.
Boy, that ran really straight all the way down. We do know that side holds for a long time, but just gets to the edge of the 4 foot. It's enough to get her single point. She restores the 1 point lead. BC with last rock in the 4th.
One of the things that someone once told me was you never know when you're going to get back, and you always want to make sure to focus on the competition, of course, because that's what you're there for, but you always want to be able to enjoy the opportunity and what's in front of you. So it'll very quickly. I don't find it difficult to get focused on the ice. I'm usually quite in a bubble, and I don't really know what's going on the other sheets or around me. So on my side of things, that's not a big problem. But yeah, just making sure you find that balance, because there are so many neat things that are going on outside of just the ice, from the telethon to the youth programming. We've got future stars with us. There's just so many things that are exciting, and we want to be part of it all and experience it all.
Fourth end underway here. The first stone, they called for the center guard, not quite able to get it up to that center line. So it's a free guard, but it's not in the no-tick zone.
Always really important to make sure that your lead stones are as close to or on the center line as possible. One, because of the no-tick rule, it takes away one option from your opposition for sure. But say this is later on in the end and that's the only guard that's up, the best that you can do is draw into the side of the forefoot and leave space for your opponents to draw for their one. Now this one coming up well short again sort of gives them the center guard.
Yeah. The other thing about that, trying to get back to the center line, it was not, we were talking about this earlier today, I believe it was, in the game I was doing. And it's one of the things that I've noticed. It's an unintended consequence of the rule, but I like this particular consequence. It used to be coming around the center guard when you had last rock, you'd tight ice it a little bit, because if you rubbed it out of the way, that was a good shot. It's not a good shot anymore because that rock goes back and yours goes to the corner, or at least that's the option that the other team gets. So you really have to play that come around with the same type of precision that you would play later in the end.
Well, and on the other side, when it's not on the center like that, you can tighten up the broom, take a little less ice, and really call that line aggressively. And if you happen to tick it, you're okay.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, because you didn't get the rock on the center line, you give your opposition that opportunity. It adds a level of precision that's required on those lead stones.
How much up? Looks a little up. Like through? Okay. 13-6.
That was a lot of waving from the BC Brushers on the way down. We do not want to sweep, and this is why. It's going to slide through the back again.
Top 8. Light's okay. It's all 15-8. Yeah, you got it now.
Another chance for the come around. This time, Anna McNutt, the second.
Such a nice draw made by Lily on her second one. Anna can match it and get right on top. Nova Scotia is going to be very happy with the start of this one.
This might be a little strong as well, so they're trying to come right by it. They don't want to rub off and maybe leave a double.
Just bring it back 8. Well, if you're back 8. Okay. 15-1. Okay. Just quick.
That was the fifth stone of the end, so they can make a play on the guards now. Looks like she's just trying to peel the yellow one here.
I think so. This is definitely the rock that's causing you the most grief at this moment.
Yep.
There is a double peel available. You'd have to throw it pretty hard, though.
Yep. Hard. Really hard. Keep going. Roll it away. Roll it away. Roll it away.
Removes the yellow guard, keeps the shooter around for a corner. Could come into play later on. Nova Scotia looking to replace the guard on shot rock.
Little tight.
Nothing out of the Brushers yet. She was trying to draw on the last one. She was a little deep.
Gotta stop.
Looks like this one's going to be okay.
Yeah, she's got nice weight, good line.
18-1.
A little bit closer to that redstone though, so now the double peel
Yeah.
is much easier.
And she's not playing it.
Yep. Yes.
Well, you always have to take into account, especially when you're, if you're a young skip, is we'll see where this one ends up.
Just touches that stone at the top of the 4-foot.
Wouldn't have been that bad if it got it out of the 4-foot, but you do have to always take into account the skill set of the team that's in front of you. So yes, that double peel was a little bit easier, but I'm not familiar with these teams, but if you have a player that maybe struggles to throw that little bit extra weight, then you know, maybe you have to stick to those single peels until you might get another chance later.
Line a bit. Oh,
Sometimes it's not even a case of the weight they can throw. It's
Yep.
it's psychological as much as anything. And I've seen it with players at a much higher age group than this. You give them the double peel, and they just try to fire out of the hacks much harder than they need to.
Overthrow.
Yeah.
Hard, get it here. Push
And
it,
if there's a
push it. Hard,
tendency
got it.
like that, and the skip's aware of it, you know, you may stay away from those calls.
Good sweep. 6.
Good work by the sweepers there. And it looks like they got that one into the top of the rings.
I think it's biting, yeah. Now for Parker Rimple, I think they're looking at the double peel here, but if she gets a little close to the nose, she could get a run back yet out of this.
Whoa. Yep. Yep. Hard.
Definitely not wide.
Hard.
Oh boy, they can't over curl it.
Okay. That's okay.
Yeah, the miss there was definitely to be on the full side.
You
of
needed
things.
to touch 2 rocks somehow or another.
That redstone rolling over does get it out of the way, but staggers those redstones. Nova Scotia's gonna guard again here, and you're really finding it tough to find a way to the button.
The nice thing about where that red stopped, if it rolls a little farther, she might have taken away her out-turn draw path. The out-turn draw path is probably still there.
Hey, line's
Now,
good.
that's not likely a shot you're going to play until, at the very least, skips first.
Just gotta stall.
Yeah, if you have to.
If you have to, yeah.
Yep. Hard, Lily. Hard. Hard. Yep. 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 Okay. Good. Do you want peel?
This. Yeah, I don't mind the peel call. I really think she's got to play the double peel now. Just getting rid of one guard doesn't help you. And the double peel she's playing should be from the other side.
Well, if you make the double peel here, you're just going to leave your shooter right on the center line, which doesn't really solve the problems that you're having.
Yep. Roll. Roll.
Just like that.
Just like that, just what you said, Matthew. That on the one hand, that could have been a good opportunity to use your coach's interaction, but on the other hand, as we talked about, you only get one. And it's possible she could be really up against it with her last shot this end.
Same spot as Steph's. Yeah.
You put this guard up, and they might have a decision to make here on your first one. If you're going to try to score 2, you almost have to throw the draw on your first one. You don't even have an easy shot to, she makes the guard. You don't have anything really easy to play just to make sure you've got something available on your last one.
Well, the thing about playing the draw on your first 2 is you don't necessarily have to make it.
Game it a bit.
If you come up a little bit light, say in the top 8 foot, at the very least you're cutting out 2 of those yellow stones that are in there. Takes a little bit of pressure off for your last.
This has got a curl. She's
Lily,
going to
just a little bit.
can't
Yep,
leave a
hard,
port.
Hard. Hard. Keep going. Yep. Hard.
I think it moved just enough at the end.
Yeah, I don't see a hole there, so.
And she's probably completely taken away that turn as far as an option for a draw, too. She's going to have to throw that wide out turn draw.
And just as you said, they're going to use their coaches' interaction now, so we'll see.
15-5. You can do it. I mean, if you peel, you're going to have to make that draw. I mean, yeah, I mean, even if you can outcount 2 of those and put Barry, that's great at this point. So 15-5, I don't know where you can take the ice, and probably middle, do you think? Or to center, I was giving just, I think at least that. Okay.
Wendy Cheka, the coach of the team from British Columbia. Just like you said, I think they're going to decide to play the draw right now. You'd love to be perfect, get this side of the button sit shot, but there's a few spots that are going to be good for you. And I think they're all just a little light. Anything heavy here will just give Nova Scotia the opportunity to draw another one in.
The only good thing, if you were, and by a little heavy, you still got to be shot rock, but if you're on the back edge of the button, that gives you room to try to score 2, but you need a miss. First things first, she has to make this draw. The good thing for them is they don't have to be anywhere near the guard, especially on this side. This side of the sheet runs very straight till about the hog line, and then it really curls hard. So she doesn't need to be that tight to the one in the 12 foot.
Sweepers don't seem to mind it.
She's got really good line coming in.
Hard curl.
She's got outstanding line.
That's good.
Just a little bit deep though.
Okay, just block.
Leave space for Nova Scotia to follow them down.
Seems to be content to just throw the guard, block the draw path.
A little bit surprised by that. Could be one of those. I mean, definitely if you're sitting in the hack throwing this, you're thinking about throwing top 8. If the line happens to be really good, you can tell your sweepers to play the audible and try to drag it into the button to sit too. But this is a chance here. You make a good draw, and the steal of 2 is well on the mind.
It is something that Anna McNutt, who is the vice for the team, she's holding the broom, throws the second stones, but in the house, she's got to be aware that if the line looks good, she can call the brush on, try to bring this right to the 4 foot.
Where are you? Okay, whoa, just no,
It's going to be a straight guard.
Whoa.
And very, very long. It's not going to look great from the hack, but the way that outturn curls, I think she can still get there. That guard is protecting the outside edge of the 4 foot, maybe a little bit of 8, but I think she can still get to the edge of the button on this outturn.
Well, just with the spot she just threw, with the shot she just threw, I think that might just clip that yellow where it is, but she got almost to she did get to the center line, so she does have about an extra quarter to half rock to play with, so I think you're right. I think if you got to be a little bit close to that yellow guard, but there's definitely enough swing at the end.
She can actually afford to take about 3 feet off it too and let her brushers work it at the end. They couldn't really do anything with that rock at the end. This does not look light out of her hand.
And the sweepers aren't backing off though.
There's the big break. It's starting to curl now.
You can see this one not all that close to the guard, but it's swooping.
That stayed out there a lot longer early. Now can they get it to the button? The line's going to be good if they can get it right to the tee. Wow, what a draw.
That's a fantastic shot there, Sean. Just getting to the edge of the button to score her 1. That's definitely a shot if BC holds on to win this game, something you're going to look back on as maybe the key moment in the match.
And something they'll enjoy talking about for 5 minutes during the break. We've got a 2-all game here. Round robin action on the women's side. 5th end action after the break.
Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, has led to this. It's out of your hands now. All the gold medals in the world can't help you now. You can throw the perfect rock and still miss, but it just takes one. You leave it all out there on the ice to leave behind a legacy.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
The Canadian Curling Trials. The thing we cried for, fought for, thrown 1,000 rocks for. The podium, just out of reach. But we can almost taste the gold medals in our teeth. Defiant, we take down giants with nothing but the stones in our hands. And in the stands, they wait and see who among us will earn the right to wear the maple leaf.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
It was probably the most unique, beautiful, rewarding curling experience I've ever had. Having the opportunity to work in USG with the Cree Nation of Chisasibi, with Rhonda Spencer, with Roy Niacapo, just the entire community really came together, supported. We did something really tremendous, introducing a sport to a community that hasn't really had curling all that much, but there's a lot of very passionate curling fans. Radisson was a place where there's a curling club many years ago, and they haven't seen it in the region since. So we put a lot of time and effort and resources and told our stories, brought together all the Indigenous curlers, and empowered each and every one of us to share time with youth and community members.
Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, has led to this. It's out of your hands now. All the gold medals in the world can't help you now. You can throw the perfect rock and still miss, but it just takes one. You leave it all out there on the ice to leave behind a legacy.
All tied up here after 4 ends of play. BC getting us started here in the 5th, and they did call for this rock into the rings, but it looks like they're going to get a center guard out of it. Well, they're still trying to get it in.
Well, this is certainly an end where without the hammer, you definitely want to push the envelope a little bit more, so I'm a bit surprised to see that call.
Yeah, especially after the break.
Line's good. 2, 3. Line's good. All you. Other curl. Stand up a bit if you can. 2. Yep.
But we will see the corner guard go up by Nova Scotia.
Hard, Anna.
Taking a long time to get off that center line. They're trying to sweep it for curl just to get a little bit more separation from the guard in the center line.
Yeah, and we've seen that the ice is a little bit dished here, especially on this feature sheet. Just Rock's not quite wanting to find that little bit of extra curl towards the wings.
Maybe, to be fair, maybe more so on that particular wing. The other side seems a little bit more gradual towards the middle, and I haven't seen a lot of play out to the corners, but it does seem like it goes better to the corner on the other side.
It's always the benefit of being up in the broadcast booth. You watch the one same sheet all week, and for many of these teams who come here, it'll be their first time playing on this sheet, so they got to learn it as they go.
Well, we get the elevated view as well, which really gives you, I think anyway, a better view of the path that rocks are taking on the way down. Two red stones in the rings. Lily Mitchell being asked to make the hit and roll behind the corner. If she overcurls a little bit, she might get the double, but the call was to hit and roll behind the corner. It's going to be close. She's got the hit for sure. Actually rolls past the corner guard. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, that's a great start. Even if BC goes and hits that rock, that redstone isn't going to be very good for them, and it opens up a easier opportunity to draw around that yellow later.
I was talking about this in one of the earlier broadcasts. When you're playing a hit and roll from the center behind your corner at any time, and I can't remember which game it was I was talking about it, but it's always better if you're going to not quite get in behind, over-roll the guard rather than under-roll it, because, as you said, you get to the wide side, no matter what they do here, you're going to have a chance to come around that corner, to use that corner later on.
Well, they're either going to stick around wide, or in this case, if they do make the long roll, now they're behind the tee line. So not something that you're all that worried about.
I like the double. And 5.
Two ways to play this. Don't mind the way they're going after it. You can make the double now, clear things up, play the draw later. The other way, you could just play the hit and roll behind the corner again off of the high one. That rock back four, not one that you necessarily have to deal with in this moment. In fact, I think more often than not, it's probably going to be a benefit to you later on, something to freeze down to or play on to later.
Well, they're going to get the hit and roll to the outside, but a little too far to the outside. It rolls all the way out of play. Even that's not the end of the world for the Nova Scotia team. There's the house right now favors Nova Scotia. They've got a corner guard and a rock behind the tee line.
And BC kind of just has to ignore that guard. You'd hate to, you can't really walk up and peel it and play for the blank. A blank here is really good for Nova Scotia. They would then have hammer in 6 and 8 and theoretically, you know, 2 hammers to your 1. So you kind of have to continue to press. Would love to see this rock maybe get half buried around that corner guard.
Waist down. Okay. Got a curl. Waist really close, actually. Okay, keep going. Keep going, keep going.
Oh, 15-9. That's good.
That's a pretty good shot. It's still, I mean, there's rocks for Nova Scotia to work with. She's one good hit and roll away from a lot of pressure, even if she just hits this one on the nose. the first red stone will jam on the second one, but it's still going to be behind the tee line, and now it creates a problem with how do you deal with the yellow, the shooter.
Well, the double is really secondary, or
Yeah.
it should be at least. It's nice if you make it, but it's tough to make it and make a good roll.
Well, if you get the hit and roll behind the corner, I don't think you're getting the 2 out, but, you know, the roll's good. This is not the way they want it to roll.
So didn't really get much of either option there. Leaves that red rock back of the forefoot. Again, that red stone is sort of a benefit to Nova Scotia. If you're playing the draw, you kind of have 2 options. Either play clean draw around the corner, or you could freeze the red.
Yeah. I'm not sure. They indicated they want to roll back to center here. I'm looking at we've got an extra overhead camera here. She's going to be awful close to leaving a pocket if she rolls back to the center line. She might have them a little, the shooter might be a little higher than the other rock, but you got to be careful. Nose hit here is not bad.
Yeah, just a little out.
Actually, a little roll to the outside. Really, that rock is just giving you a chance to get the force. You would have hated to leave a pocket in the back of the 4. That's not a bad result.
On their one that went top 4, so like same weight as that. 16.
Now, if you're Nova Scotia, you sort of have to accept the fact that any sort of idea of a blank or anything else is gone. So if you're going to get forced, you might as well be forced to 2. They're going to take on this freeze in the back of the forefoot to start.
Careful, filled up. 80. Oh. Anna's. Yep, hard
These
Anna.
always look like they've got so much room at the hog
Hard
line,
Anna,
but
yep. Hard Anna.
the big curl from the hog line in.
Hard, bite the 8-foot, bite the 8-foot. You got it. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, 16-6.
Would have had nice line, didn't quite have the weight. Does get second shot.
Yeah, so BC forced to deal with it, and they do have to be a little bit careful. We've seen already a number of hits this game in this spot. Run a little bit straighter than they expect. Need to get at least a nose. Would love to be a hair to the inside.
Still a bit out. It's got to come in a lot.
Yeah, a little bit out is not what you were looking for here. She's going to be just a little off the nose and jams it onto her own stone at the back of the forefoot. So now it's Nova Scotia sitting 1 with a chance to draw around. She can get maybe half a round. She can do that the Christmas tree that the only people you hear talking about Christmas trees in February are curlers.
Gave it some. I gave it some. Careful. Anna's right now. Swish. Fully. Girl.
Line looks pretty
Hard, Anna.
nice.
16-3. Hard, Anna.
Did they wait too long on the brush?
Hard, Anna. Hard.
Wants to get second shot out of it. Oh, she's got a really good one here.
Good sweep. 16-3.
That's about all you could ask for. Maybe just over curls a hair. Does leave that back yellow exposed, although I don't think there's enough room to really get a good roll underneath for BC.
I don't think she could roll into the yellow. She could maybe try to roll the other way under her own red. And it looks like to me there's still room to roll that direction and be shot rock.
Like a nice
It would definitely be close, though, so a little bit of precision required.
If it sticks, that's okay. No. Whoa.
She called them off right out of her hand. This line looks pretty close.
Not far off for sure.
It will roll just a little bit too far.
Seemed like where she wanted to hit it, maybe just a little bit extra weight than they wanted.
Yeah.
And now you might be thinking 3 a little bit here if you're Nova Scotia.
Sure.
Couple options. I think the easiest one is just to play the draw they just did. Try to wrap it around that yellow stone in the top of the 8-foot.
They don't even have to come around it. I'm just looking at the overhead. If she got right to the face of it again, she'd be sitting too.
So like T-line.
So you have to make a decision. Are you coming around the rock at the top of the 8-foot, which you certainly can do on this ice, or you could just follow it down, sit right on the face. And I think they've opted to try to come around it.
Well, it's always good to have a decision in mind before you throw this, but this really comes down to the sweepers who are going to make that call out of your hand. And you want to make sure that you're communicating with the line caller so that they know what you're going for.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught in between here. You chip off that stone, you probably leave a double, and your end is gone. So you have to be clear on which one you're playing. Needed to get some 8-foot, and this is going to come up short of the rings, and it's going to give the opportunity for Megan Rempel to perhaps set up for the steal here.
Few draws in a row down that spot where the players seem to have been a little bit caught. I'm not sure if it's just not quite as quick as they're expecting, or they're just pulling the string too much, but we've seen a few where sweepers really having to work it just to get it far enough, or in that case coming up short.
Megan Rempel had an absolutely outstanding draw with her last stone in 4 to get the single. Another opportunity here, if she can negotiate that port, get to the edge of the button, she might be able to get a steal here and take the lead for the first time in this game.
Line seems to be what they want. Sweepers don't love the weight, though.
Well, there's a lot of waving.
Always the option of a tick.
Yeah, they made the decision a little too late, though. And it will slide through the back.
Not gonna be too heavy this time. So more ice. Do you think like there? Or is that not enough?
And something I've noticed a little bit more at this level especially is just, or I'll say as you get experienced and as you get a little bit older, you know that you always want to have those plan Bs in mind when you're playing that draw. Yes, we always want to be close. You never want to be thinking about a miss, but as the line caller there, you can always be thinking, well, the sweepers are telling me a little bit heavy there. We might have a tick here or a tick there. Having those things, always keeping those things in mind so that when the sweepers tell you we're a little bit heavy, you can make that decision really early on in the shot and actually give yourself a good chance to get as much as you can out of every rock. But now, free chance here to draw for 2 for Nova Scotia.
Line's good, all you. All you. All them. All you.
Short on her first draw. Had to take a little bit more ice, so in a slightly different path here with her second. She's got more weight for sure.
Do you need a rub?
Looks like she's got the port.
15-1.
Looks like she's got the port. Looks like she's got the button. Looks like she's got 2 points. Nova Scotia picks up the first deuce of this game. Here in the 5th end, they will take a 4-2 lead after 5, and BC with last rock. When we come back for the 6th, it's the 2025 U-18 Curling Championships live from the Nutana Curling Club in Saskatoon.
The Canadian Curling Trials. The thing we cried for, fought for, thrown 1,000 rocks for. The podium, just out of reach. But we can almost taste the gold medals in our teeth. Defiant, we take down giants with nothing but the stones in our hands. And in the stands, they wait and see who among us will earn the right to wear the maple leaf.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders. Plus, behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Well, as we begin play here in the sixth end, first stone called for into the rings, and that not surprising this time with a 2-point lead. Nova Scotia willing to play a little bit of defense, certainly in the even end. This, perhaps a little surprising, though. The BC team going to play the hit on it right away. She's down 2 with 3 ends to play. I thought we'd see a corner guard here.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time left to be, quote-unquote, wasting an end with a blank. You're in a position where you're down 2. Like I kind of hinted at before, you have 2 hammers to your opponent's 1. Unless there's a steal or a blank somewhere, you're going to have hammer in 6 and 8. They'll have it in 7. So this is where you want to take that opportunity to toss up a corner, play a little bit more aggressively.
Yeah, you will see a lot of these teams have played, from what I've seen this week, they will play the delayed corner. It's a tactic you've seen played quite a bit. But that particular rock wasn't in a spot where you had to worry about it. It could have been ignored.
Well, I think that's the biggest part of it, too. Like, if that rock is, you know, full forward, right on the top of the button, that's something that you might be a little bit worried about leaving there later. I don't think you should be. I think you still got to toss up the corner and go for it.
I agree.
But that's, you know, there's some reasoning there, maybe.
If your team plays the delayed corner, then you know, a rock in the button area, you'd hit it. But you know, and that's one of the things developmentally at a team at this, and now she is playing the corner guard. So I do think maybe it looks like their tactic was to play the delayed corner, and that's part of the evolving strategy with teams at this age. You have to recognize that first rock really wasn't good enough that you had to worry about it.
Yeah, and teams will have that sort of, usually will come up with a game plan depending on where the rock is. Okay, if it's top 4, we're going to hit it. If it's top 8, we will or won't. And then usually in the 12-foot is not something that you have to worry about this early in the end. Really important that this one now stays as a guard.
That's good.
Does just stop in time.
Yeah. 15-7 even. You got it. Good. Team back 4. Team. Lily's rock.
Nova Scotia looking to bring another stone into the 4-foot area, but the Brushers haven't touched this yet. They don't want to be behind the tee line.
15-6. Curl a bit. No, well. Wait. 15-6.
And we'll come to rest just nibbling the top of the 4-foot. Nova Scotia sits 2. Even a shot like this, I have to admit, I didn't really see a clear call here. Are they playing the double or the hit and roll? And really, the double doesn't matter. I'd love to see them play the hit and roll. And if it overcurls and you get the double, so be it.
But you always want to be clear that
It
make
didn't
sure that
seem
everyone's
clear,
on the
yeah.
same page. It just seemed like she tapped the stone, said hit this one now. Pretty good, great result there.
Yep.
You get the double, so you're going to have a chance to go around the corner later. But really important that there's definitely times that you can over-communicate, but I would definitely say that that's the rarity. You always want to make sure that everyone's on the same page for exactly what you're going for.
Oh. Yep. Yep. Hard steps. Yep. Yeah, roll over a bit. Yep.
Nova Scotia with the hit. They want to keep the play away from the corner guard. BC would like to get back under. They're going to play the hit and roll here. You could just elect a straight draw, too. This one's still full 8-foot.
Don't mind either one.
Yeah,
You
I
could
don't mind it
definitely-
here. I think if you end up nosing it and you get an exchange of hits, you're definitely drawing on the next one.
Yes.
But this one's deep enough that, you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You definitely have to stay, though.
Yeah, this one has some curling to do.
9-8. Yeah.
will touch it enough to get it out of the rings and all the way out of play. And now Nova Scotia maybe the opportunity to get rid of that tight corner guard. Talking about rolling into the rings, if she rolls right out here is not a bad result either. You don't want the nose hit here.
Always tried to throw these ones. Just think about the peel, throw the peel. If it happens to come up and you get bonus roll, that's nice. They're not throwing peel weight. They are going for the roll. But
yeah. Well, some of these teams yet don't have the, I mean, there's some pretty young players out there and some of them aren't very big and they don't necessarily throw the big weight, but you saw the good rotation she had on that. You could certainly play a peel with quieter weight if you've got a good rotation on your handle. Gets the nice roll into the 12-foot.
Might be well on our way to, well, I was just about to say another blank. We haven't actually had a blank in this game, but we've definitely seen them try.
Well, certainly it's going to be difficult for BC, especially this late in the end, to get another offensive opportunity here in 6.
9-8. That's all right. Okay.
11, so like same weight.
Hear a lively crowd out there, as you mentioned. The Blue Nosers are out in full force tonight with a few Nova Scotia teams out there, but it's been a great crowd all week. Definitely will be a different environment than maybe they're used to. Now, the players that I've talked to have really enjoyed the crowd. They love the energy. They say it, pumps up the adrenaline, helps keep them in the game. First day I was here, though, I was sitting out there just taking in some games in the afternoon, and there was a guy a few seats over from me. I couldn't exactly figure out who he was cheering for, but he had an air horn going. It was one of the further sheets over, and could just imagine that could be a little distracting when you're trying to throw, and suddenly there's some air horns going off for other sheets. Something that you get used to. You experience a lot in an arena environment, but would definitely be new to a lot of the players here.
With that stone rolling onto the stone that was just outside of the rings, it is a biter, so BC going to have to make a play on it. Parker Rempel will just catch a piece of it on the way by. Nothing in play now. Cassidy Blades will just look to play the draw, and this is good too. We talked about earlier in the game where they were trying to map out paths. Without last rock here, she's not drawing straight to the center line. She's trying to put this in the corner of the 4-foot. You're just looking for a spot where it's not quite so automatic, at least make the other team have to think about where do we put the broom. We haven't maybe played here yet.
Well, yeah, ideally, I think in a perfect world, you kind of always want to be top 4 center line. Just makes the opponent have the furthest to roll out for their blank.
Yeah.
But when you get, if you're keeping track of where everyone's throwing, you might remember, hey, she hasn't quite thrown a hit, or they haven't thrown too many hits in this spot here. Little bit of that, but also just a free chance for you to now read a new spot on the ice.
Yeah. But I think she puts this right on the edge of the 4-foot. I can't remember anybody throwing a hit in that spot in this game.
Good sweep there by the Nova Scotia front end. The counter side to that is because you aren't throwing to the center, you definitely don't want to leave a guard.
No,
so
for sure.
Well done there by the sweepers to make sure that gets in.
Less.
7 games in play here, just like every other draw that's going on. But if you want to keep track of any of the other games, they are live on the Curling Canada YouTube page or curling.ca/scores. You can check out the scores of all the other games, follow your favorite teams, and check out their records as we move forward to playoffs just a few days from now.
We talked about the Nova Scotia headgear. There's a number of colorful headgears out there, but there's also been, I've noticed a little bit out of the corner of my eye, quite the battle over position for the flags. There's a lot of flags out there, and there's been there's been a few battles to kind of get your flag in the right position. It's kind of fun to watch the crowd at an event like this.
Still think 11. There, try to roll that way. But. Yeah. Just 11. Try to roll it as far Lily's way as you can.
Well, you think for a lot of these players, this would be their first experience with a national championship, I'm sure, but probably for a lot of the parents too. I mean, we do have some.
Yeah, there's a lot of them when I was looking through the bios that are 2 or 3 times at this event already. But without knowing, you know, I didn't see the venue last year. Don't know what kind of, whether they even had bleachers on the ice.
Seem to like this one.
Go back to the corner of the button. They were actually talking about rolling the other way, but you have to make sure you stay, first of all, and they did that. And this comes back to what you were saying, though. This is as long a roll as you could have.
But if we blank, and then somebody we have to steal. Why don't we just hit and stick?
One and then take one, then we'll hit.
That's right. Same thing. So I don't mind in the same. I agree.
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll go for one, and if it.
Well, it looks like they're going to play the hit for one here, Sean.
I
don't know if I would say I'm not on board.
Yeah, no, I don't.
It's sort of one of those things. I can understand maybe their line of thinking or their rationale. Like I said, right now you have 2 hammers to 1. Regardless of what happens, you'd think one of you is going to have hammer in 7, one of you is going to have hammer in 8. So why not score a point here now? And I think that line of thinking might work out if it's a tie game or maybe you're up 1 in that sort of scenario. But being down 2, knowing you have the hammer is so important. And if you give it up now for a single point, there's no guarantee you're going to have another hammer. Maybe Nova Scotia could get a blank in 7. Then you're sitting there
and
not too happy with the situation.
Gets the hit. You'll notice nobody on Nova Scotia thinking about sweeping that rock out. Yeah. So it will stay for 1. They wanted a single, they get it. We'll see how that works out for them. The trail 4-3 here after 6 ends of play, and Nova Scotia will have last rock in 7.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, has led to this. It's out of your hands now. All the gold medals in the world can't help you now. You can throw the perfect rock and still miss, but it just takes one. You leave it all out there on the ice to leave behind a legacy.
Yep. 4-3 for Nova Scotia as we begin play here in the 7th end, and Nova Scotia does have last rock as well. BC starting with a center guard. Sorry, Matt. And they get the center line on this one. That's huge.
Yeah, I was just taking a look across the sheets here. Nobody really short on time, sort of as you mentioned before. Now they do get those extra 3-4 minutes. with the expectation that with those coaches' interventions, the clock doesn't stop like it would with a normal timeout. So they get a little bit of extra time. We haven't seen too many coaches' interventions here. I think just 2 throughout the game. So we've got plenty of time here. 16 minutes for BC, almost 19 for Nova Scotia.
They haven't even used half their clock yet through 6 ends.
Not that there's been too much to think about. A lot of the ends very wide open. Not too much discussion that we've seen happen between these teams. I think we're also maybe the fastest sheet out here. I noticed there's 1 or 2 games that are still in the 5th, and almost all the others are in 6.
Yeah, keep going really hard. Keep going. 10-5, she slid tight.
Yeah.
Makes the hit. She will roll well past the guard, but does hang around in the back of the 12-foot.
10-5. Got it.
Nova Scotia going to make a play on that stone. She talked about, Matt, Nova Scotia would be happy to have a blank here.
Absolutely.
So any rock they can see for now, they're going to hit it.
Yeah, and if BC ever does get one around that center guard, you just peel it. You continue to try and peel it. If you ever get a chance to hit it out, that's great, but it's sort of a risk-free situation. You don't want to give up a steal, but you can kind of play things a little bit safer. If you do happen to give up a steal, you're still tied with an 8.
And they've forced BC to make a choice here. I think you have to come around. You're kind of committed here. You took the one in the last end. You have to play aggressively here. And that Yellowstone just too far out on the edge to hit it and get anything good out of it. You ever roll out a peel of the guard and your end is gone.
Yeah, up one without, not a great situation. Or excuse me, down one without, not a great situation to be in. Even if things go your way and you do happen to get a force in this end, you're still down 2 and you're needing 2 or 3 in the 8th to tie or win, and then if it's 2, you got to steal the extra.
14-1. Let it die.
Your other option is to steal 2 ends in a row here, which isn't all that likely as is.
Statistically, probably a much better chance of it happening at this level than.
Well, yeah. That's why.
I mean,
you always gotta be careful.
Get your guard up and make your draws, right? It's. It's still all about execution.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
Now that draw a little bit deep, but if you're BC, you've forced Nova Scotia into a draw here, and that means there's going to be some rocks around the 4-foot, and that could give you an opportunity to steal here.
Well, the fact that they are drawing makes BC very happy. Like I said, I thought might see them walk up and just peel the guard, keep things wide open for a while, and you're just sort of waiting. You're hoping to get a small miss out of BC later where you might be able to hit and then sit 2, but at least then you're not playing with any risk. This one looks like it's got a good chance, and all credit to them. They put that rock in a fairly good spot. I think actually overswept it maybe a little bit, but
it's not bad where it ended up.
You can just see some rocks starting to bunch up now in the center of the rings. If BC comes around, makes a good tap here, sets up a pocket, steal is definitely in the mix.
I already think the blank's out of the equation. I just don't see either of the teams playing those kinds of shots that would get us back to a blank now. This is going to be an interesting end, which is way more fun for us. This curling early on a side that moves big late. They're going to have to go to get it by the guard.
Really hard now. Let's get it by. Really hard.
Not going to get by.
Yeah. That was in and line.
Just
That's
chips
okay.
it a little bit. Does leave 2 guards out there. Shotstone exposed now through a port.
Like this way? Or around?
I don't mind this way.
Like all the way around?
No, like the other one.
It
Yeah, like through the middle?
Yeah, there.
It creates an interesting dilemma for the Nova Scotia team. It's hard to decide where to put this next rock. You come around either of those guards, Shotstone's still going to be exposed. You certainly don't want to throw a guard here.
I think this is the right way to play it, though. You imagine you play around this red corner guard. If BC does happen to go down to hit shot stone, they have to roll the other way. If they ever roll too far, there would be maybe a double available, or you would just be able to then come down and hit that red stone in the back of the forefoot. If you play around the other guard, then that might be something that gets in your way after a shot or two. So they're actually going to sit down to sit 2 now.
Yeah, you wouldn't have thought coming in that that would be able to hold enough of the forefoot coming that direction, but it does.
And you know, the more I look at this, Sean, the more if I'm BC, this is kind of an awkward situation. I would love to just tap that Yellowstone on the button back a foot or two and sort of set up a wall with those 3 rocks that are in the forefoot right now, but
how?
Yeah, how do you get there with those 2 guards that are in the way?
Draw a rock right on top. Doesn't even need to be shot. Can you get there? You feel you can get there?
You could get to the one they just threw. You're not getting to the one on the button.
Talk to Parker about it, because this is really critical. Like,
that could
we are
work
very
too.
It
Just
could,
playing a
yeah.
draw
If
down
you
at
could
one
ever
way
freeze
to
the
see.
pocket even.
and hit out. So there's a really lone rock in there, and I would like to see if we could like draw in there or something. Because like if the hit goes wrong, we're gonna give up 4.
Yeah.
So you guys decide how that's gonna work. If you're just tapping that back, because maybe you can't get in with draw weight. I don't know. Okay.
It seems like all the discussions
anyways, you guys,
about the shot rock, even if they're talking about drawing or tapping, I don't mind the idea of drawing to the corner of the one that was just thrown. It is one of the issues that I've seen. It's been a while since I've coached players at this age group, but there sometimes can be a little bit too much emphasis on every shot where we need to be shot. We need to be shot. We don't need to be shot yet. You don't need to be shot until all 16 rocks are down there. You put this in a spot in between those 2 yellows in front of them where they can't get rid of it very easily, and you know that's great.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to
tough.
figure out. Like, I think there are really 2 options that I see. One is just play the same draw that Nova Scotia just did, maybe take a little bit more ice, try to draw into that pocket. The other one is, I know they didn't really want to throw the hit, but if you do play a little bit of a soft weight hit, you could actually hit that yellow into your own red and roll in front of the other yellow. Yes, you'd be getting rid of one of your stones, but you could leave 2 yellows in a spot where it makes it very difficult for Nova Scotia to follow you down and remove your own rock. And that red stone in the back of the forefoot that's not the stone that you're going to steal the end with. So
no,
you'd love to keep it around. It would be helpful, but it's not a necessity.
And that was always a tough shot from the turn they were playing it, because it runs straight for the longest time and all the movement is late. If they had gotten by the red one, I don't think there's any chance they stay on the yellow one in the button area.
Top 4. Okay? Because we're 1 and 2.
I think she said we're 1 and 2.
I'd love to see them calling some sort of hit here, Sean. The draw is nice. You can put it in a good spot, but those stones that are in the forefoot, I'd love to see them play some sort of hit and just sort of spread everything around. Like, play the yellow on the button into the back red. Even if you lose one of your own rocks, really just open things up for yourself.
I know what you mean. I don't hate this call, though. The other problem with the hit, though, is you just, you know, especially if you leave that yellow back there, you're just putting another rock behind the tee line. You have to get this, if you're going to play the draw, you have to get it to the top of the forefoot. This looks like she's got a really good one coming in.
Yeah. You want to line this up so that the yellow does jam into that back red. I think that's a great spot.
Yeah, that's really good. You've actually probably forced BC to have to move some rocks around here, and she can't throw them with weight because, as you said, that one on the button's going to jam on the back one. Could you throw like a back 4, back 8, chisel the stone that was just thrown and end up behind the guards yourself, but then maybe end up with a wall of 3 yellows there?
You could, like...
Tap the yellow into the pocket and roll behind the guards, but you don't want to do it with big weight.
Well, I think there's probably two
there
options.
is
One is
that,
you
and
play
there is doing
like an
some
easy
sort
hit
of
weight, something like 11, 11 and a half seconds, and you
is
just
that, and there is
try
some
and
sort of weird
nose the
thing,
one that
blah,
they
blah, blah,
just
that's probably losing red
hit.
and
You'd
then
lose your
that.
back
Yeah,
red,
I don't want to hit
but
that
you'd
up.
leave a yellow back button.
But there is,
Hopefully
like,
you have a little
doing
bit of
that,
space
and
where you
sure,
could
that
come
might
down,
be
tap
the
something
whole
later,
thing,
build
unless
up
you
a
did,
wall
like,
at the back.
downweight.
The other option, like I think you were saying, is you play a hack weight or a board weight and basically just hit and roll behind to the left side of the forefoot as we look at the overhead.
Yeah, and it'll
Yeah,
put
maybe
that
the board.
Yellowstone. I wish I had a
Maybe the
telestrator.
board.
It'll put that Yellowstone at the top of the button into the pocket of the other two, and you could end up with a wall of 3 yellows back there, and that wall's going to be in the open.
Okay, like board or hack, bump that red one.
They're going to play the angle tap on the red.
The one that.
It's
This is the way to get at shot rock.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure you have to play it yet. This is the kind of shot you could save for later too.
Yeah,
This definitely has the best angle into
Yeah.
the button. You're absolutely correct, but if you don't make it,
You got a couple of
have
chances
nothing.
here. You could tap it onto the top one too and still end up kind of doing the same thing we just talked about, where it might spill in behind the guard.
like board hack.
You're not likely going to get the same kind of wall when you're coming in from this kind of an angle, though.
That's bit out.
This goes back to what I was just saying, though, too, about they're a little too worried about having shot rock. This is the only way to get shot rock, but it's earlier than you necessarily need to look at shot rock.
Not far off. And you know what, Sean? If that Yellowstone wasn't in the top of the button, this is a great situation. I'm just not sure how you get a redstone into the button, but if you ever could.
There's probably an out-turn draw path there yet. Now, that with that shooter having rolled over just a little bit, it's not easy, but it's there.
Because if we're on our red, like if we send it
We'll
back.
probably see Nova Scotia play pretty much the same shot they just did. Play the draw down, tap it to the button.
Even if we like move those yellows more.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah, on the one hand, I don't know if they're looking at it, though. Kevin Ouellette's going to talk about something. I'd love to peel the guard, but how? Like, where do you peel it where you're not running it into something?
I was thinking about just like back button, like just tap it onto the button. So like. Yeah, then you can use it later. Yeah, yeah. So like almost try to be yeah.
It's not bad.
So like top or yeah, like kind of where the A is.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
good job.
I like that. Top 4. Okay. So like yes.
I think most of that discussion was about just making sure they don't overthrow this. I don't think you want to tap it. You end up with another rock behind the T line, and it's just one more chance for them to get in.
Yeah, you can move it an inch, but you don't want to push it too far. The other reason I love this shot is she just threw it. So she's going to have a really good feel on the speed of this path. Should be close.
Yep. Hard line. Hard in.
I think I heard Brushers calling
Okay.
top 8.
Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
This is going to come up short.
Just past that one.
Now,
Okay.
you don't love having a center guard when you've got last rock. The situation in the house is pretty good for you right now. It depends on whether or not Megan Rempel can make that draw. And I mean, it's there. She's still looking at the tap, I think, which is also there.
The red stone that's closer to the center, like just right at the top of our screen as we're looking at, is that the one she's looking at tapping?
Well, I would hope that. I wouldn't
I thought
think
she would
so.
look at the
But
one she just did.
She could play
but-
the angle again because there's a pocket. When you're coming in from that angle, the 2 yellows and the 2 reds kind of, it's almost like a catcher's mitt sitting there to just tap it right into there. Or you could be drawing the port.
There is definitely a port there that.
This looks like if she's playing the tap on the center line one, this looks like too much ice to tap that one.
Yep. Really hard. Whoa. Really hard. Curl. Curl. Line.
Look at some curl here.
Yes. Really hard, guys.
Yeah, they ended up with a little too much curl.
Go. Okay. Good job, guys. Good job.
That was a bit down.
It's not bad, Sean. That's a rock that you
it's
can
another rock she
still
can
get in
use,
there.
Yeah.
Although I
Do you
think she
we're
did
third?
push it out into the open. I mean, not sure if these girls are going to see it. There is a triple on those reds right now, and that red is in the hole. Maybe not. Maybe you don't see the triple, but there is just a nose hit that would take away a lot from BC.
Yeah, you have to be real careful, though. If you hit it anywhere on the outside, you jam it on the back when it's probably shot rock. Even a heavy draw, if you chisel off that,
Yeah.
as long as you get to the nose or the inside, you're good.
Yeah, I think so. Yep, you got it.
She's going to try to guard the port.
Well, the issue is that red stone that you were looking at before in the top left hand at the 12-foot, they're pretty much lined up. You just angle that into the one that she just tapped in. It's a tough pocket to miss.
And here's the thing. Both teams have already used their coaches' interaction this end, so they've got to make this call on the ice.
Yeah, it's pretty much like halfway.
Tough to take both shots away here now. Having said that, you could leave a very tough shot, and Megan's only got one chance now left to make it. And she's, for all intents and purposes, here in the seventh end, she's going to be playing an angle tap against the loss.
Yep, hard. Hard, Lily. Yep, hard. Hard, 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 hard. 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 Keep going. Yep, yep, yep. Hard. Yep. Hard, 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 hard.
I think that's more or less a perfect spot, Sean. She kind of took away both the tap and the port there.
Certainly from the outturn side.
Yeah, you might be able to
You'd have
throw
to play
an
the intern through the port and try to chisel that 8-foot stone into the 4-foot, which, I mean, it's there.
It's so
It's
difficult,
tough.
though.
It's really tough. And they've been playing the whole end with the other turn.
Okay. Yeah.
What do you see? A lot of yellows is what I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's basically.
I don't see a lot.
Like I don't know. Unless I can. Like,
You might be with perfect weight if you just squeak by that guard they just threw. That angle tap might still be there.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, yeah, with the intern, I think it's there. You make the port.
Give them less.
Like feel and like try to.
I think that's the only way I see you
Yeah, they're talking
not
about
giving up two.
trying
here.
to play a double, but I don't think this makes the double. It's just not dragging enough. It's gonna jam on that red one.
I think if they hit this, that yellow is just going to jam on the back four. I think Nova Scotia will probably be sitting two and probably see them throw it away. It would be tough to get a third one in there.
It depends what happens here. If you're on the outside and you roll away, she's got a fairly risk-free chance to draw to the outside corner. If you're right on the nose, I don't think she's got a way in.
But I like this better. I like this better because then I'm eliminating rocks. Because then that's.
Yeah, you're eliminating a rock. I don't know if you're eliminating plural.
Yeah, I don't see that yellow at the back going anywhere.
It'll drag a bit, and if you've got big spin, maybe it spins just far enough.
Well, we'll see here in about 7 seconds.
Yep. Yep. Hard. Yep, 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 yep. Really hard. Really hard. Really hard.
Oh, she's going to be on the top one, I think. Oh, no, got just by it.
Oh.
Wow. I don't think anybody saw that coming. I think she's got shot rock.
Sorry.
She actually just about touched the first one, but got far enough to the inside that she got a little bit of a roll.
Yeah, if she is a millimeter
We have that yellow.
either way, like tighter or wider, that shot's disaster. But
Another look at it. Yeah, got just to the inside, rubbed the back of that stone, ends up frozen. And
Or we could just tap this for one. Yeah.
great result, and I don't see a 2 here for Nova Scotia. I think you kind of just have to play the draw in, tap your yellow an inch into the button to take your one.
I heard one of them in the house say she could run the angle, the guard in, which,
Yeah, that angle does work.
it kind of looks, and it's fairly risk-free. There's nothing red in your way. You could run the yellow into it. It's not easy, but you can't hurt yourself, and the potential is there for 2 or 3. Sounds like what they've opted for is just to play the draw and try to tap the stone at the top of the button. You only need to move it
Like our
maybe
yellow.
2 inches to be shot rock.
So like T-line, back button.
This does not look like a lot of ice, though, for a draw weight tap.
Okay.
Now, if she taps it heavy and it's onto the reds at the back, she could maybe
think
be
you
shot that
probably
way,
still
too.
get one, yeah.
Really? Oh, then. Close. Oh, curls. Yep.
I don't think they need this to curl. It'll go on its own.
This is going to put the blinker on and make a right-hand turn. Going to be very close to that guard.
Now, they had to sweep to get it by, so it's a question of where does it stop when it jams on the back, and I don't know.
You know, it over-curled it. If they tap that onto the red stone on the left, you're definitely shot, but they sort of hit it in the perfect spot where they might have pushed it too far.
It looks...
Yeah, so, no, it's okay. So
I think we're going to see a measurement.
Yeah, Steph said.
The yellow on the...
Oh,
I thought that was the close one.
I thought they were measuring that stone, and who pulled it off? That was
Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia that pulled it off. This is going to be a steal of one. Because those two stones aren't
yeah,
close.
same. Yeah. One yellow.
Oh, well. I'm confused.
Wow, I thought we'd see a measurement, but I thought it was going to be on the stone they pulled first. So they are closer than us, and certainly the overhead view, when they look at it, they've got a better angle at it. It's a steal of one. We're all tied up here after 7 ends of play, and it will be Nova Scotia with last rock coming home.
Everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, has led to this. It's out of your hands now. All the gold medals in the world can't help you now. You can throw the perfect rock and still miss, but it just takes one. You leave it all out there on the ice to leave behind a legacy.
The Canadian curling trials. The thing we cried for, fought for, thrown 1,000 rocks for. The podium, just out of reach. But we can almost taste the gold medals in our teeth. Defiant, we take down giants with nothing but the stones in our hands. And in the stands, they wait and see who among us will earn the right to wear the maple leaf.
Well, Matt, as we come back from the break, we have to admit we weren't 100% sure what they were discussing in the house. It looks like what they had conceded that the yellow at the back of the button was shot rock, and they were looking at whether or not they needed to measure for 2. I'm surprised they didn't measure for the first one, but at any rate, it's 1 point for Nova Scotia in the 7th end. They've got the 2-point lead coming home.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. I mean, we didn't quite hear exactly what was said there between the players. If that's me, I'm putting a stick on that thing. That's a big point, even if you do think it's one yellow. You know, the umpires are there for a reason. Give them something to do at the very least. But it seemed like they were going to measure that stone, and then it got pulled off. So I'm not sure if the concession came after that or if it was always one. Either way, one goes up on the board for Nova Scotia, and that's a big point to give yourself a 2-point lead here going into 8.
Yeah, it sure looked close to us. But again, you know,
our overhead might not be perfect.
You don't know if
they
the
might have a
overhead's
better look.
exactly over the pin, so you have to defer to the players a little bit. They're right there to look directly over the top.
Switch. No, yep. Sorry, just keep going. Yep. Finish if you can.
Either way, it's a decent start. We get a
Hard, fully.
Pretty close to a center guard up. Corner guard goes up after me. There's not a lot of space in between.
Kind of,
those
yeah.
two.
Well, they were actually playing the come around, which surprised me. You're down 2 here. You need a corner guard. Now you came up short on the draw, so you end up getting sort of a corner guard, but and this is a situation where we talked about this a little bit earlier. Because of that yellow guard's not on the center line, you could try to draw the port, come behind the red side. Nothing wrong with this either. It's just not as many options.
Yeah. I think either way, you have to get one in there, though, right now. Don't worry about that Yellowstone top of the 8-foot for this moment. That Yellowstone actually came up a little bit light, so you could actually get around this guard and sit shot, which would be very nice.
Looks like a ton of room at the hog line, but again, we know this side really moves from the hog line in, and there you see it taking a big move. If they can get that to the T line, it's dead buried.
It's a very nice spot.
Well, even in the top 8, that's mostly behind cover. Might be able to see a sliver of it. There's a good look at it. Yeah, she can just see maybe an 8th, and this is still just the 5th rock of the end. You go after it and hit the guard. It's still in the free guard zone.
We could just like
Trick
no, you
with
can't.
These, yeah. Well,
look
trick
over your
with
shoulder,
these
count.
if you're going to chase after that redstone, which I don't recommend, but if you're going to pick a weight where if you do happen to touch the guard that you don't remove it from play, throw something like a hack or just through. I think I'd like to see them get another one in the rings. Either you play the same in-turn draw, sink one to the side of the button, or follow them down and freeze.
Somebody needs to count. Yeah, I love the hit and roll on the red guard. The problem is the rule doesn't let you play that yet.
Like we just don't want them to get 3 for sure. What? Just rolling to here?
Yeah, and not like hitting the boot.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we can't peel.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. It's always good to assign somebody on the team to count to 5.
Or do you like, can you see any? Okay.
And you know, I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I can't tell you how many times over the years, especially since the 5-rock free guard zone, that I've seen teams actually play that shot and not realize, oh, we couldn't do that yet, and now you have to put the rocks back.
I will say my team did it once this year, Sean, and I'm never going to let Ryland forget it. I wasn't thinking it was one that was very close to the house, so we couldn't tell from the hack whether it was in or not, and he just called the hit. I just threw the hit, and afterwards it went back, and I like to remind him of that every now and then. But it is something that happens, you know, you're just not quite thinking. And not the best result there. Going to touch and roll off, leaves red sitting shot. Now chance for BC to sit 2 if they want to take it.
You want to peel?
I certainly don't want to peel with the weight she just indicated. You got to keep your shooter around. I understand her concern about that yellow rock in the 8-foot.
Yeah, it's less of a peel, and like I don't hate the idea of maybe a hit and roll behind your own corner. Just expose that yellow in the top of the 8-foot. It's a little bit more precise, but as you said, number one goal is
I saw her touch the top of her head. That's usually indicating a lot of weight, and the situation dictates you not throwing big weight here. I don't mind this call either. She's talking about coming right around both yellows. It certainly looks like it will go on this ice, and this is the way you maybe set up your 3.
This one a little easy out of the hand. Sweepers are going to have to work on it.
Gotta get it close. 2, 3.
A little soft on the release, as you said, and a little light on the weight as well. This is just going to end up with another guard.
You want to keep going, get this out of the way of that other yellow guard. Does something.
Yeah, if nothing else, it sort of it confuses the situation for the Nova Scotia team, let's be honest, because they'd love to play an open end here, but if you can't have an open end, Well, all the rocks are in the middle. That should favor them, except they're not shot right now.
There's no easy red double.
No.
And that's the trickiest part of it all. So I think Nova Scotia is just going to try and remove the red stone that's in front of the shot rock. I think the idea is just sort of roll to the center line, junk up the center a little bit more, expose that red stone. Surprised they're playing this turn at it, but
it's risky. The other turn, you could run it into the yellow. Now this is going to be close to straight back. It's kind of the excuse me run back.
Well, a great result either way. Now yellow's sitting 2, but still plenty of mess out front.
And I don't think you can afford. If she's looking at hitting the mess out front again, you can't. If you're BC, you got 5 stones left. You have to find a way to count 2 of them.
Well, I know you don't love center cards with the hammer, but you're looking to score 2 or 3, and you've got enough up there. Just use what you can.
You don't have any corner guards, so you got to use them. This is the same draw we saw Megan throw in the 4th end going into the break, and this looks like it's doing the same thing. They were a little bit worried about the weight early, but it stays out there, maybe in some fresher pebble, and the weight came off when it started to curl. That ends up in the back 4, but it's over buried.
Yeah, and going back 4 is totally okay there. We hear the crowd reacting to a big shot over on another sheet, but going back 4 there is great. You need your opponent to miss.
You do.
So if they make this draw, you're probably out of luck for this game. But if they ever get a miss, now you have room to put more red stones in there and go for your 3. Comes up a little light, but that's a great stone there for Nova Scotia.
Yeah, it's really making it tough to get in from that side again, for sure.
It's still us.
Even if BC does get another one in there, the only way to do that would be with the intern, but it's a really short tap.
You know, I know what you're looking at, but I'm not sold. I think you can still get there on the out turn. The way that out turn curls, we haven't seen anybody be tight to the guard yet. I think it's
think
definitely
you are right.
still there. It's not going to look good from the
Yeah.
axe. It's not a comfortable throw.
Close to the guard with T-line weight, you probably have enough finish. I think you're right.
Protect that one, and then we can still draw around the other side for 2. I think we need to protect that one. Okay. Don't you think so? Yeah. Because if she ticks that in, then we're really. I mean, we can still raise that one for 2. We can. There's plenty of room to draw for 2.
Where do we want it?
Yeah. Like something, I don't know.
Like a 3? Like 3 and 2 is okay. Like up here? Like.
Well, this is certainly not conventional strategy. You're guarding a rock in the back of the forefoot with one in front of it.
Yeah, like Nova Scotia won't have another way to get in there, but neither will you.
Yeah, neither will you.
I think if they make this shot, I don't think Nova Scotia does anything over there. I think they maybe play the intern, tap the one top 8 back, really cut down the scoring area, or they could even just throw a guard on the other side.
On the Best of the West logo, and there's no draw on the intern side. And
It's a little out, I think. Actually, it's okay. 3, 2's okay.
a little wide out of her hand is going to be okay. This thing's not going to have any problem curling.
Whoa.
yeah, it's questionable to be trying to protect one in an end where you need 2. Yeah, and she's looking at it. She doesn't even have to be that tight. She's looking at taking away the path, but it doesn't need to be that tight.
Yeah, perfect spot here, I think, is just past that yellow, maybe bite the forefoot, half buried, but even if this is you know, a halfway guard or a tight guard, it does the job.
You could throw the other turn and throw a corner guard out there, and I don't know how you draw in anymore.
This doesn't look like a lot of ice for the draw.
No. Now, having said that, she could kind of chisel off the one that's sitting in the top of the 8-foot and take away the draw path that way, too.
Line's good. Anna, bit, yep. Yep.
She's got a lot of rotation here, so the line should hold. It'll carry better as well. Brushers are going to have to go on this, though. Yeah, that's not really taking anything away.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just don't think it was enough ice.
It didn't look like a lot of ice.
If you're that weight, but maybe a full rock further out away from the center line, it does present a lot of problems to BC. Right now, they can just draw another one in there.
Plenty of room early, but again, maybe not quite as drastic on this side, but plenty of movement from the hog line in, starting to go now.
Yeah, sweepers don't mind the weight. We'll definitely need to put the brakes on a little bit.
And not going to. It's going to slide just a little too deep. Or a lot too deep, even if that one stops a foot higher, because they did talk about if they had to, there is one red guard out there they could run in, and if that one stops even for third, the run in, well, it could be for 3 if you absolutely make it perfect, and even if you don't, if you just rolled off, you'd still have that one at the back, could count the second point, but a little too deep even for that.
Just more ice and a little more weight. Yeah, because it's better to be wider because they get a lot of curl. So. Yeah, just top 8, top 12's fine. Line's good, all you. Early, Anna. Okay, top 8. Just top 8.
On the brush early as much as anything, they're just trying to hold it out there.
Good. Yep. Yep. Just top 8. Leave it. Okay, well.
I'd love to bounce this off
Yeah,
something,
so would
keep
I.
it out.
Bounce off? No, it's not gonna bounce off. Bounce off? Okay.
Little bit of a touch.
And then it spun back to it, but
Does take away a little bit of space, but the draw is definitely still there.
well, it's still there. It's tough now. Like if you're dead buried on that rock right on the tee line, you're probably second shot. You would have loved to roll that over about 6 inches, and then I don't think she's got a draw on this side.
Like full 4 is kind of what we need. Yeah, it's gonna need to like curl a bunch after the guard. Yeah. Line, that's tight. Actually, it's okay. It's okay. Where is it? Full
Can we
4?
curl?
Curl.
Can we curl?
Actually, it's yeah,
I'm
curl.
worried about the line early, but this looks like it might be a little strong.
Yeah, I think the line's actually going to be okay if the weight is good.
Just a little up then. That's okay.
Sorry.
Slides into the back 8.
There's enough.
Does hang on enough, though, for third shot, just
Yeah.
like you were saying before.
Guard this draw.
Well, if you take away the guard, if you guard the draw and she has to play that run in, it could be for the win.
Probably easier. Yeah, probably.
Very difficult shot, but you hate to give your opponents a chance.
Well, you guard the draw, which, I mean,
That's too much, or
I think I like this, though. I
You
mean, draw the
probably have to
easy
guard the
shot
draw.
that gives them the, or easier shot. I don't think it's an easy draw, but easier shot that would give them the extra end. that
draw.
run back
It's just hard to
is
get wide enough to guard
so
it so
precise.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's there for sure for the win.
It's you're kind of forcing your opposition to play
Yeah.
the shot for the win instead of the shot for the tie, though. She's going to have a tough shot to make either way.
Mhm.
like same weight, a little less, but like a foot less, 2 feet less.
I don't know what else you'd play, though.
Well, I think if you're going to guard this, you might as well, why not just play a draw in there? You bite any
You
piece
could,
of the
yeah.
forefoot, then if you play the same draw that BC just did, even if you draw down to their own, you still take away any shot for the win. And if you put it just a little bit in the forefoot, I don't think there's a shot to even tie.
Yeah, if you play the draw and you got a little tight and crash the yellows, you actually, those two yellows that are touching each other, the one might actually roll underneath and take the run back away.
Yeah.
Whoa, Anna, you gotta go, Anna.
Oh, line's good.
Okay,
Yep,
line's
hard,
okay,
Anna.
line's okay. Yep, keep going,
Hard,
Anna.
Anna, yeah.
Hard, Anna, hard.
Hard.
Hard, Anna, hard, hard.
Hard, Anna,
Hard,
yeah,
keep
hard.
going, keep
I don't
going,
know if
keep
they're
going.
going to get this far enough off the line. Well, it's finishing now.
It's always tough to know if it's quite
Yeah,
out far
they
enough.
move so hard at the end, it's hard to know for sure. It looks like that's taken the draw away.
Well, it looks like they see the shot.
Well, they had talked about it during the intervention. They knew that that this was always here if they needed it.
I think you don't want to whip this one. You want to throw something, you know, you'd love to run it back, stick it dead on the yellow and win that way, but you want to throw a weight where maybe if you only hit the inside half of that Yellowstone, you can still stick around some sort of controlled hit weight.
First things first, make the run. If you can make the yellow go away, you've at least got the tie, and then the question is going to be, can they hold the shooter? There is room to dead stuff it on there. That
Very difficult attempt here for Megan Rempel, but it is for the win.
needs to come up a little bit. She's close.
She's not
She's
far
really
off.
close.
She's got
Makes
it.
the
It's
hit.
coming back. She's going to make contact.
But the shooter is going to roll too far. It does touch the rolling stone, but leaves it there. And as we talked about, it's big to keep that rock in the back of the 8-foot because that's the second point, and that means we're headed for an extra end here. Teams will take a short break. We'll have the extra end for you right after this.
One of the things that someone once told me was you never know when you're going to get back, and you always want to make sure to focus on the competition, of course, because that's what you're there for, but you always want to be able to enjoy the opportunity and what's in front of you. So it'll very quickly, I don't find it difficult to get focused on the ice. I'm usually quite in a bubble and I don't really know what's going on the other sheets or around me. So on my side of things, that's not a big problem, but yeah, just making sure you find that balance, because there are so many neat things that are going on outside of just the ice, from the telethon to the youth programming. We've got future stars with us. There's just so many things that are exciting, and we want to be part of it all and experience it all.
Or you want it closer?
Extra end action here for the first time in the games that I broadcast, so we'll let everybody know the difference in the rule here in the extra end as well. Again, no timeout, but they do have a coach's intervention, so 5 minutes on the clock, and already we see here that the Nova Scotia team has signaled for the officials' timeout because they have to agree if that rock is on the center line or not.
Yeah, not that. It might not take on the actual tick shot if it's not, but it's good to know just in case a draw gets away from you and you move it later. You need to know if that rock is on the center or not.
Well, they bring out the official with that high-tech equipment that they use to determine if it's on the center line. It's just a triangle. They'll line it up to the center line and see if it touches the edge of the stone. And I believe, I don't know what the hand signal is for that one, but I think I heard somebody say it's on.
He might not be able to determine it himself. So in that case, I think they call out the head official to. Oh no, I think they're looking at the time clocks.
Yeah,
because
the clock had started and before they did that, and it shouldn't have. The time clock should not have started until after. And now they've got it counting down, and it should be going back up to the 5 minutes.
Both teams should have their full time right now, because the Nova Scotia's clock shouldn't start until they've agreed on the situation and everyone is they've sort of been relinquished control of the house. So I'm sure the umpires will discuss in the background, and now they fixed it.
And the decision is to come around it from the intern side. Boy, that's a really nice draw. Bites corner of the forefoot. It's not dead in behind cover, which, you know, really when you've got last rock here, you don't necessarily want or need to be burying rocks.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's a great spot. If you think, I mean, it's good depth where if it had been buried, it still would have been very good. But say if you're buried and you're something like top 12, well, that's just another guard for your opponents to use.
BC calling for the come around here, and I would have been happier to see them throw a second guard. And they may not get by, and now they might have no center guards.
Oh, no.
That's okay. Yeah. So same way.
Well, that makes this decision a little easier. They try to come around the red guard. It's a little off center now. You cannot be short here. Even the 12-foot is a guard. You got to get 8, bite 4 here.
Switch. Yep. Hard stuff. Yep.
You're not going to get that close to the guard, but it really wasn't critical to bury. The key here is to get this in deep enough that they can't use it as a guard, and that's a good spot for that stone.
If you could walk down and place the rock wherever you wanted it, I think that's probably where you want it to be. Chokes off any access to get around that red one.
I thought we'd see her freeze it, but she's going to play the hit.
Well, I think she wants to open up a way to get into the 4-foot, which is the right way of thinking, but just the wrong execution.
Yeah.
I definitely like your idea. You could just freeze, even come down, tap it back 2 feet.
I think there's an out-turn draw there now. You don't need to worry about moving these yellows for sure.
So she's going to make the double, but those yellow stones are something, it's something that you learn as you get more experienced and you are taught maybe the right way to think about the game is that just because they're your opponent's color does not mean that they're necessarily a detriment to you or that you can't use them. You bump those yellow stones back 2 feet. Now it's something you can freeze around that guard later and try to set up your steal that way.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's just not critical to be thinking about shot rock this early in the end. Set up shots.
So now even if they don't stick around on this, which they won't, now it's pretty wide open. even if you make a really good draw around the corner, there's always a tap available for Nova Scotia, or at the very worst, it's a draw to the full 4 for the win.
And a few rocks left to come. You get a good rock buried here, you expect Nova Scotia's going to try to peel the guard, but then you maybe guard half a rock on the center line side and maybe work the guards closer to the center line. There's ways to manipulate this situation, and they are protecting a piece of the forefoot with that guard still.
Yeah, it's definitely not unusable.
I don't know how many extra ends we've seen all week either. Do you really want to have to draw to the pin with your last one against a rock on the edge of the 4? Like, how much is the speed coming down in the middle?
I'll tell you, Sean.
Even that one looked like it died coming in.
Yeah, my skip, Rylan, came out last night. He was doing some commentary, and I came out just to sort of, you know, watch the games and wait for him. And we actually went out and practiced on the ice after the game, and it felt pretty flat. Not something you'd want to be throwing any precise draws on. This one's going to get by the guard, but should get the back one.
Not the one they were going after, but it still makes a red one go away. A chance to put the draw in a little bit better, though. That last one, and of course, not just the thrower and the skip, but the brushers would have seen that last one that really died coming into the house, so they'll have a better idea on this one. She had nice line.
Little tight. Yep. Get it here.
Parker Rempel this time, and this looks like it's going to come up short, but a center guard's not bad either. You might like to leave some separation on them if you could.
2 guards is okay.
All other games here at the Nutana Curling Club have finished except for one, Northern Ontario and Saskatchewan 2 on the men's side. Northern Ontario drawing for 3 to try and force it to an extra, but they're going to come up light, and the home province comes away with a win over there. You can check the final score of that game and the final result for all the other games on curling.ca/scores.
Looking for the double peel, gets one, gets the second, all the way across, and now not much left to hide behind.
Fantastic shot there by Stephanie. Really takes a lot of the pressure off your skip. Worst case scenario, it's either going to be a draw to piece of the 8-foot or maybe a nose hit for the win. So all eyes in the club now turn over to sheet A. If you are just joining us from the streams of any of the other games that were ongoing, we are in an extra end here, tied 5-5.
We talked about coming around that staggered corner. I don't think you're doing this. Is third to last stone. You throw one more center guard. You're hoping for a nose hit, which, I mean, it could happen.
Absolutely.
Even if they just make the peel, you might go around it on skips first because it's a staggered red guard, and if she chases it, she could end up spilling something back closer to the center line.
Well, I think you do go around on skips first. I think your plan is you go around the corner. Don't know what Nova Scotia will do. They have a couple options, but let's assume they completely miss or don't have a rock, so you go around the corner. Then your second rock, you're probably trying to play a draw to the top of the 12-foot. Just put something in the way of a draw path. Put something in the eyes of your opponents.
If you can't be buried on the center line, sometimes the best way to steal one is to sit 2 and you hope for a rollout. Boy, that's a great shot by Stephanie Atherton. Gets a bonus in getting a second guard out of the way. I'd still be tempted to come around that, but the situation not as good for BC on the corner now with only one over there.
Yeah, you can play it either way. But my preference would be to go around the corner. The issue now is now that there's no stagger, if you go around the corner, the other team does have the option of taking a free crack at the run back. The other option, what they seem to be trying to do is that one last chance, toss up a center guard, hope for a miss, hope you can sink it around. Even if they do make the peel, then you go around the corner and you make your opposition draw the 8-foot for the win.
not that you'd ever play it this way, but left that guard in a spot where if she hits this the same way that Stephanie did, there's a chance she comes off that red and into the rings.
Or if she ever stuffs it on that second red stone over on the left-hand side, then the guard is one rock closer to the center line.
Did you happen to catch that? Stephanie took a subtle little glance over there. She's aware of where that rock is. Cassidy Blades with last rock here in the extra end. Came in with a perfect record, looking for the peel. Now where's the shooter going to end up? It's awfully close to that red. Catches the back end of it and gets the shooter into the rings.
Very nicely done. Still usable, though. It is a little bit tighter now, so a little bit more difficult, but you can definitely draw around that.
You can. It's tough. That's the wing that we know goes a little straighter.
We'll see what Wendy Cheka has to say.
If you're buried, give her a piece, then she has a choice. Do I hit it? Do I draw? I think that's what you go. So I don't know. What do you think the ice is to get around there?
Maybe like what, edge of middle four? Yeah, I like that.
Think so?
I think we're fine with that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and it can, just needs to be shot. Yeah. You got it.
The tough thing about, I thought she was talking the other middle of the four. That looks like a lot of ice.
It does. I thought the other middle, I thought she said other middle of four too, but I thought that was not enough ice. I think it's somewhere in between. I think we'll have a chance here. You almost don't want to be fully buried around the yellow.
No, but you need to be a piece if you're wide open. Now with that rock being in the ring, she doesn't need to stay if you leave her an open hit.
You're right. I think best case scenario might be like a third buried. You get to take away a little bit more of the rings. You show enough to the opposition that maybe they think about, do I draw, do I hit? And I think that's what the coach was sort of getting at. Regardless, you have to be shot stone after this rock. Did say this spot was a little bit straighter. Doesn't quite seem to be getting the finish, but
looks like it's still quick to the corner too. That's it all the way to the back eight. Now she can probably see just all.
Yep, I'm sitting right behind the hack here, and it's about edge on edge, maybe even a little bit of space, but
it's like wide open though.
Cassidy Blades wasn't even going to think about it.
But we don't need to
Anna McNutt
We don't need to
pointing out that she can see all of it yet.
Just like 10, do you think? Or
either shot is fine. You want to see her just put the broom down, head down to the other end, confident in her shot. She took one extra look back and saw how open it was and has decided to chase it instead. Tricky spot here, Sean. This is the straightest spot on the sheet.
Yeah, certainly can't afford any sort of a set here. If she lets this go clean, she's on a piece of it when she lets go, and it should come up a hair. Final stone of the extra end. Just needs to make that red stone at the back of the 8-foot go away. She's got another biter at the top 12 that could give her the win. This has got room. They're sweeping for curl. This is going to have to go. She needs to get a piece of this. It's going to be close. She rubs it, and just enough to move it out of the rings. Nova Scotia will pick up the win here in the extra end. Cassidy Blades moves to 4-0. The BC teams drops to 1-3, and both of these teams still in the playoff hunt tomorrow, playing a lot of two of the other teams that are at 3-1. A lot of action yet to come. Round robin play, 4 draws tomorrow, 2 draws on Friday, and then the playoffs to follow. I want to thank everybody for joining us here tonight. My name's Sean Joyce. On behalf of myself, my partner Matt Rempel, or pardon me, Matthew Hall.
Whoa!
There's too many Rempels out here. Matthew Hall. Thanks for joining us here tonight. We look forward to seeing you for the rest of the weekend here from the 2025 U-18 Curling Championships.
Thanks.